I am Samira, and for as long as I can remember, responsibility has been my steadfast companion. Our humble abode was always a hive of activity, filled with the laughter and chaos of my two younger brothers. It intensified with the arrival of my baby sister when I was just 9. "Samira, dear, could you help with Elizabeth's diaper?" my mom would call out, her voice weary from working long double shifts. Dropping whatever task I was engaged in, I would dash to assist. This was our norm. Everyone contributed. Everyone except Elizabeth. From the outset, Elizabeth was the exception. "She's just a baby, let her be," my dad would insist, dismissing any concerns about her behavior. I observed my parents exhausting themselves daily, dad at construction sites and mom cleaning homes, to ensure we had enough to eat and could dare to dream. Caught in the middle were my brothers, Jackson and Ryan, often overshadowed by my responsibilities and Elizabeth's exemptions. At dinner, knowing glances were exchanged whenever Elizabeth's tantrums were rewarded yet again. Post-high school, I was determined to escape the relentless cycle of scraping by. My job at the local diner wasn't glamorous, but it marked a beginning. Every dime I made was stashed away in my college fund jar, hidden in my closet. At night, I'd count my savings, dreaming of the day I could enroll at the community college. My dedication didn't go unnoticed, and soon I was promoted from waitressing to managing the diner's finances. College no longer seemed an unattainable goal. I enrolled in evening classes, balancing work and studies with an unanticipated fervor. The fatigue was palpable. Many nights I fell asleep on my textbooks, only to rise at dawn for another workday. Observing Elizabeth's carefree life, sleeping till noon, skipping school, facing no repercussions, only spurred my determination to succeed. "You're going to burn yourself out," my dad cautioned one night, finding me studying past midnight. Smiling, I responded, "Maybe, Dad, but I'm going somewhere. I promise you that." My hard work paid off. I earned my college degree, which opened doors I had only dreamed of. Hired as a junior analyst at First National Bank, I poured the same tenacity into my job as I did into my studies. Within months, my supervisor commended my rapid progress, hinting at a bright future. Perhaps my knack for numbers and navigating office politics were skills honed from years of managing family dynamics. Meanwhile, Jackson and Ryan moved out, carving their paths, while Elizabeth continued her carefree existence at home. Calls from Mom about Elizabeth's escapades were frequent: late nights, transient boyfriends, faltering grades. I listened, but detachedly. That chapter of my life was behind me. I had my apartment, my career, my aspirations. Then, a call one morning disrupted everything. "Elizabeth's pregnant, and the father has left for Nevada, U.S., and wants nothing to do with the baby," Mom revealed, her voice tense. Clutching the phone tighter, I realized how far I'd come and how much had yet to change back home. Of course, they would help her with the baby. Elizabeth was still their precious little girl, now 17 and expecting a child of her own. I remained silent on the phone, already bracing for what I knew was coming next. "You'll help too, won't you, Samira? Come over on weekends. You're so good with children." That was the moment I began crafting a repertoire of excuses: urgent work projects, professional development courses, client meetings, anything to preserve my much-needed free time instead of caring for another child. "I don't understand you anymore," my mom lamented during a particularly tense conversation. "You used to be so helpful." "I used to be a child who had no choice but to help," I retorted. "Now, I'm an adult, with my own life." "But doesn't family work both ways, Mom? Or have you forgotten the checks I send every month that usually silence them, at least for a while?" The checks I wrote covered substantial expenses: Elizabeth's prenatal care, baby supplies, and ongoing costs. But no amount of money seemed to earn their approval. Over coffee one day, my Aunt Anna hinted at the family's whispers. "They're calling you heartless behind your back, saying you've changed, become cold." I stirred my coffee slowly, watching the cream swirl in the dark liquid. "Let them talk. They've never really understood me anyway." "You're seen as ungrateful," she continued, pressing the point. "Ungrateful? For the privilege of raising their other children? For the chance to now raise their grandchild? I've earned everything I have, Anna. Everything. That week, my promotion to senior analyst was confirmed, which bumped up my salary again. The increased checks I sent home spoke for themselves, but my boundaries remained firm. No weekend babysitting, no emergency childcare, no last-minute favors. Let them call me whatever they liked. I had spent enough of my life playing the responsible one. Between client meetings and financial reports, romance was hardly a priority, and my dating app was mostly unused until one rainy Tuesday night when Arthur messaged me. His profile was different. No boastful gym selfies, just a genuine smile. I notice you work in finance, his message read. I'm an investment advisor. Maybe we could bore each other with market talk over coffees. That coffee led to dinner, which blossomed into weekends together, evolving into 3 years of the kind of relationship I never thought I'd have time for. Arthur was patient and humorous, always managing to make me laugh, even after the longest days. You know, he mentioned during a stroll in the park, I never thought I'd find someone who gets both compound interest and my terrible jokes. Then came the proposal, simple and sweet, in my apartment over a home-cooked meal. I can't imagine my life without you, he said, presenting the ring. I said yes before he could finish his question. Introducing Arthur to my family went smoother than expected. Even Elizabeth was on her best behavior, which felt like a minor miracle. He's wonderful, Samira, my mom gushed after our first family dinner. And did you see how great he is with Nathan? She referred to Elizabeth's son, my nephew, who indeed took an instant liking to Arthur. The wedding was beautiful, and married life with Arthur started perfectly. He meshed with the family as if he'd always been a part of it, playing with Nathan for hours, seamlessly integrating into our complex dynamics. During our family visits, Arthur would teach Nathan how to throw a ball or build with blocks. Elizabeth watched these moments with a strange intensity that I didn't fully grasp at the time. He's going to be such an amazing father, she'd remark, her smile loaded with meaning as she glanced my way. You're so lucky, Samira. That's when the probing began, initially from my family, and then from Arthur himself. Don't you think it's time? He'd ask, observing Nathan scamper around our living room. We're not getting any younger, he'd add. I'd lay out my thoughts repeatedly. We need to be completely ready. We need our own house, not this cramped apartment. We need a solid financial cushion. But we're both in stable jobs. We're doing well financially, he'd counter. What are we waiting for? The right moment, I'd insist. We agreed, 1 child when we're fully prepared. He'd sigh and let the subject drop, yet I could sense his disappointment. At family events, I'd catch him gazing longingly at Nathan. Your sister manages just fine, he'd occasionally remark, a hint of frustration in his voice. My sister lives off our parents and dips into their retirement savings, I'd reply firmly. That's not the life I want for our future child. The tension between us built slowly, almost imperceptibly, like storm clouds gathering on a bright day. You know the rain is inevitable, yet you convince yourself it's still distant. I was absorbed in climbing the next rung of my career ladder, in growing our house fund, in the meticulously planned 4-year plan. Then one Saturday, as I was spring cleaning, which inevitably meant sorting through the perennial mess on Arthur's side of the closet, I found something unsettling, a phone hidden behind his winter sweaters. It wasn't his work phone, nor his personal phone, and it was unlocked. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the messages. The first one hit me hard from Elizabeth, miss you already. Can't wait till Saturday. The messages, photos, and discussions that followed were a blur of betrayal, mocking me and my career, celebrating their deceit. The timestamps revealed a months-long affair. Then one message stopped everything, baby's yours. The doctor confirmed today, 10 weeks. I don't remember how I got to my parents' house. I was a whirlwind of shock and rage, clutching the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. Elizabeth was there, casually watching Saturday morning cartoons with Nathan. I slammed the phone on the coffee table, shattering the calm. Nathan was startled, and Mom quickly ushered him out. Elizabeth, unfazed, picked up the phone and scrolled through it nonchalantly. Oh, well. I guess you know now. You're sleeping with my husband, I exclaimed. She shrugged, dismissively. We're in love, Samira. These things happen. And now, with a baby coming, Arthur and I plan to get married once you stop being difficult. Difficult? I was incredulous. I'm being difficult? Well, yes, she said, as if explaining something simple. You never really wanted children anyway. You're too caught up in your career. Arthur needs a real family. I turned to my parents, desperate for them to intervene, to denounce this betrayal. But instead, my mom sat beside Elizabeth, comforting her. Samira, try to be reasonable. Nathan needs a father figure, and Arthur is so good with him. The realization that I was standing alone against what was now my entire family was crushing. As the reality of another baby coming settled in, my voice faltered. My husband and sister are having an affair, and you expect me to be reasonable? I choked out. Dad cleared his throat uneasily. Well, you never really wanted children, honey, and Arthur. He's always wanted to be a father. Maybe this is for the best. When was the last time you cooked him dinner? Elizabeth. She'd make a good wife. I stared in disbelief at my family, all aligned against me, defending the indefensible. There was Elizabeth, visibly pregnant with my husband's child, while Mom was already fantasizing about another wedding. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes, but his stance was clear. A proper wife. I echoed, my voice hollow. Like your precious Elizabeth, who depends on you and betrays her sister? Elizabeth rolled her eyes dismissively. Don't be so dramatic, Samira. Just go back to your big office and your important meetings. Leave the family stuff to people who care about it. I barely recall the drive back from my parents' house. The world seemed surreal, as though I was observing someone else's life crumbling, not my own. When I entered our home, Arthur was in the living room, acting as if it was just another normal Saturday. Hey, honey, he greeted, moving to hug me with that familiar, now sickening smile. I stepped back, holding up the secret phone I had found. Want to explain this? His expression shifted from confusion to recognition, then to fear. Where did you find that? He stammered, clearly flustered. In our closet while cleaning. You really should find better hiding spots for your affair phones, I retorted. Samira, I can explain the messages. The photos? Or maybe how you got my sister pregnant, I demanded. He initially tried to deny it, as they often do. It's not. I mean, I didn't. But seeing the resolve in my face, he dropped the act. Fine, yes, Elizabeth and I are together, he snapped. What did you expect? You're never home. All you care about is work. When was the last time we had a real conversation about starting a family? So, this is my fault? You cheated because I wanted financial security before having kids. I shot back. You never wanted kids, not really. You always had an excuse. The house, the savings, the right time. Elizabeth wants a family. She gets what's important in life. I looked at him, this stranger with my husband's face, and felt nothing but revulsion. What's important in life is loyalty, honor, basic human decency. But I guess those aren't important to you, or my sister. Don't act all high and mighty, he retorted. You're just angry because Elizabeth's giving me what you wouldn't. The divorce papers were filed the next day. Having proof of the affair made the process swift. My brothers, Jackson and Ryan, came to help me move out. They were the only family members who stood by me. Elizabeth was always spoiled, Jackson remarked as we packed. But this is a new low. Ryan, unable to even utter her name, declared, they're dead to me, both of them. Through my brothers, I inadvertently kept abreast of updates I'd rather avoid. Arthur and Elizabeth had a quiet wedding, attended by my beaming parents. Elizabeth gave birth to a girl. Despite everything, life moved on, but without them in mind. They settled into a modest house in the suburbs. Nathan began calling Arthur Dad. Mom kept urging us to visit, clinging to the idea that we needed to be a family again. Jackson shared this with me during one of our monthly dinners. She says we need to be a family again, he relayed. We are a family, Ryan responded, raising his glass. The three of us. That's enough. I nodded, thankful for the loyalty of my brothers in a world where fidelity seemed scarce. We alone recognize that some betrayals are irreparable, some bridges permanently burned, and sometimes families are healthier apart. Years of change have shaped new lives for all of us. My new apartment was a loft with a view of the city skyline, complete with floor-to-ceiling windows, marble countertops, and ample space to showcase the art collection I had always dreamed of. The Mercedes parked in my reserved spot shone under the garage lights. I had achieved everything as planned. My brothers frequently visited, sharing snippets of news. Elizabeth and Arthur were floundering, having moved 4 times in 3 years, each home smaller than the last. But their struggles were no longer my concern. Then, on a Tuesday evening, a familiar number illuminated my phone screen. Samira. Arthur's voice came through, aged yet recognizable, tightening my stomach. Please don't hang up. I should have, but instead I listened. We need your help, he said as if he had any right to ask. Elizabeth had an accident, a compound fracture. She's had surgery, can't move, can't care for the kids, and she's pregnant again. I sat, phone pressed to my ear, wondering if this was some cruel joke. The kids need someone to pick them up from school, to watch them until I get home. Nathan's struggling to manage, and with the new baby. You thought what? My voice was eerily calm. That I would help? They're your nephews, Samira. Your family. Elizabeth can't even get to the bathroom by herself. My family? I repeated. The sister who betrayed me with my husband? That's my family? Don't be like that, he snapped, his tone now accusatory. This isn't about us. It's about innocent children who need help. Are you too selfish to care? Too selfish. I scoffed. That's rich. Coming from you? We're struggling here. His voice rose. Do you know how hard it is keeping up with the expenses of children? I'm working overtime just to keep food on the table. We can't even afford a decent place to live. Meanwhile, you're living it up in your luxury condo with your fancy car. So, this is about money? I countered sharply. Not all of us can just focus on our careers, he retorted bitterly. Some of us have real responsibilities. Must be nice, having the family you stole and no way to support them, I replied coldly. Sounds like a real dream come true. The kids need parents who didn't build their lives on betrayal. Goodbye, Arthur. I hung up mid-protest and blocked his number before he could call again. My mother's number flashing on my phone was almost as unwelcome. I answered anyway, out of some lingering habit. Samira, Mom began with that tone she used when she wanted something. We need to talk about Elizabeth. She needs help. Arthur called you, didn't he? As I paced my living room, my mother's voice came through the phone, strained and pleading. He told you about her leg, didn't he? Yes, he did, and I told him what I'm telling you. Not my problem. How can you be so cold? She's your sister, and she's struggling with 3 kids, soon to be 4. The sister who slept with my husband? That sister? I replied, my voice icy. Mom sighed heavily. That was years ago, Samira. You need to move past it. We're family. Funny how family only matters when you need something from me, I countered. Her silence was telling. We've helped her as much as we can, Mom's voice cracked, but she keeps asking for more. Money for the kids, the rent, everything. We've gone through all our savings. Your father and I. We can't keep this up. I couldn't suppress a bitter laugh. So, the golden child is finally becoming too expensive to maintain? Don't be cruel. She's never learned to. Mom's voice faltered. To what? Work? Support herself? Take responsibility for her actions? Gee, I wonder why that is. She just keeps having babies, Mom blurted out, frustration seeping through. She won't look for a job, says she's too busy with the children, but she's always asking for money, always needing something. Sounds exactly like the person you raised her to be, I said coldly. The princess who never had to face consequences. You have no right to speak to me like that. Mom's voice rose sharply. I am your mother. And whose fault is it that Elizabeth turned out this way? Who taught her that she never had to work for anything, that someone would always bail her out? We did our best, no. You did your easiest. And now you're calling me because the monster you created is too expensive to feed. You have a duty to help your family. Mom was shouting now. After everything we've done for you? I interrupted. You mean like supporting my sister when she had an affair with my husband? Or like calling me selfish for wanting financial security before having children? I don't owe you anything. I hung up before she could respond, my hand shaking with the force of years of pent-up frustration. The view from my apartment suddenly seemed like the sweetest revenge. My life, built exactly as I'd planned it, without their help or their approval. Later that evening, while I was reviewing quarterly reports, Jackson called. You'll never guess who tried calling me today. Elizabeth, I guessed, already aware that the desperation tour was making its rounds. Bingo. Wanted me to help with the kids. Maybe loan them some money until they get back on their feet, he snorted. As if they were ever on their feet to begin with. What did you tell her? The same thing Ryan told her yesterday. Some betrayals can't be undone. What she did to you wasn't just cheating, it was destroying a family. She started crying, saying we were being cruel, that family should help family. He paused. I reminded her she didn't seem too concerned about family when she was sleeping with your husband.
How did she take that?
About as well as you'd expect. Started screaming about how we're all against her, how nobody understands how hard her life is. He chuckled darkly. Guess karma finally caught up with her. 3 weeks later, Ryan brought the news I'd been expecting. They had moved in with Mom and Dad. Elizabeth, Arthur, the kids, all under one roof. The family saga continued, just without me. With a new baby on the way, Dad is turning his workshop into an extra bedroom. Mom and Dad, who are looking forward to a tranquil retirement, are now on full-time babysitting and financial support duty. While Elizabeth recuperates, Mom keeps an eye on the kids, mostly just scrolling through her phone all day. Dad is even tapping into his pension to help cover their expenses. Yesterday, Mom dropped by my place. She seemed worried and asked if I could help them out since they were feeling overwhelmed. I wasn't surprised to hear this. The following day, she showed up unannounced at my door. I hardly recognized her. She seemed visibly older and exhausted beyond just the physical. Before I could respond to her plea, I stopped her. Listen, you've made your decisions, I told her firmly. You chose to indulge Elizabeth even when she hurt me. You allowed them to move in. These were your choices. Now you have to live with them. If you show up here again, I will call the police. Are we clear? She tried to speak, but I didn't let her continue. Remember, this is the bed you made, I added, and then I shut the door on her, blocking her number, the last family contact, except for my brothers. That evening, I had dinner with Marcus, whom I'd been seeing for a few months. He knows all about the family troubles and has always been supportive without pressing me. After I shared the latest happenings, he reached out and held my hand, reminding me that family isn't just about blood relations. Sometimes, it's about the people you choose. I felt reassured as I thought of my supportive brothers and Marcus. I mentioned to Marcus that my brothers were visiting over the weekend and invited him to join. His smile was all the confirmation I needed. For the first time in a while, I felt genuinely content with where I was and the choices I'd made. The chaos at my parents' house was no longer my burden. I was focused on living my life, building my own family, and safeguarding my happiness.